Good morning. My name is Jackie Anderson, and I'm an assistant dean at the University of St. Thomas. And thank you for joining us today. I'd like to welcome you to our fall online learning series. Today's session is How to Get Ahead Without Losing Your Head with Adam Dince. As we enter the fall, we are back to our monthly cadence of our free online learning series. And we have a great fall in store for you. So give me a moment and I'll preview our upcoming attractions before I introduce Adam. Next month, on Wednesday, October 14th, we are so excited to welcome back leadership expert and executive coach, Peter Krems. The title of his session is How Working Virtually Changes the Work of Leadership. Now, this session will focus on leveraging the advantages of video-based relationships, as well as learning to compensate for some of the potential blind spots when working remotely and via video so frequently. Now, Peter teaches both in our leadership and management program, as well as our St. Thomas executive program. That's on Wednesday, October 14th. Then on Wednesday, November 11th, we are welcoming University of St. Thomas strategy professor, Mike DeVaughn. His session is titled Reevaluating Your Strategy for the Post-Pandemic World. Now, Mike teaches strategic management courses both in our undergraduate curriculum as well as our MBA curriculum. And Mike has actually been very involved in the recent relaunch of our mini MBA in our executive education programs. It's a great way to have a cursory view of key topics within the degreed MBA. And finally, as promised, we have a wildcard session coming in December. And it was based on the feedback you gave us from our Summer Online Learning Series survey. So I'm delighted to announce that on Thursday, December 17th, we're welcoming David Magee to our Fall Online Learning Series. David is a principal in Ablin, Magee, Underberg & Associates. It's a key executive recruiting firm here in the Twin Cities. As a matter of fact, Forbes just listed it as one of the best executive recruiting firms in 2020. And the focus of his session will be on the theme of a professional reboot in 2021. Should be a great way to wrap up our fall survey series. So with that, let's move on to today. In a moment, I'm going to hand over this digital platform to Adam Dince. Please feel free to use the chat feature to ask any questions anytime during the presentation. I will try to save those questions for the end, and we'll have a Q&A session. As always, our goal is to end between 8:50 and 8:55. And if you have any difficulty or you have to step away, know that we're recording the whole session and you'll be receiving a link to the content a few days after. So it is my pleasure to introduce Adam Dince. Adam teaches in our Certified Digital Marketing Certificate here at St. Thomas, as well as in our MBA programs. Now, Adam has led digital marketing efforts at Arrowhead Electrical Products, Deluxe Corporation, and is currently the Director of Digital Experiences at Collegiate Education here in Bloomington, Minnesota. In addition to his great marketing expertise, Adam brings a plethora of talents to the table. He is actually the author of the book Hopeful to Hired, and this book is aimed at new college graduates, and he's also a licensed hypnotherapist. But I sense the accomplishment that he's most proud of is he is a veteran of the U.S. Navy. It is my pleasure to welcome Adam Dince to our Fall Online Learning Series.
Thank you, Jackie. Appreciate the warm welcome. And I am just going to share my screen here. So please stand by as I do so. Well, first off, let me just say what an honor it is to be here this morning. Thank you to the University of St. Thomas crew for inviting me to speak. And thank you to everybody who is here today, taking your morning and spending your time with us. So thank you much. So today we're going to talk about how to get ahead without losing your head, as Jackie mentioned. You can see a couple of ways to get a hold of me. My website, Adam Dince, goes directly to my LinkedIn profile page, and then Sacred Stairways, we'll talk about that here in a second, but that's another website. We'll talk about that in a minute. Or you can just email me directly at adamdince@gmail.com, and I'd love to connect with you and talk with you. And today we're going to talk is when we think about how to get ahead without losing your head, what does how to get ahead mean? And I'm going to leave that up to you, because we all have different definitions of what getting ahead means. To some, it might mean getting a promotion. To some, it might be getting a new job. To some, it might mean spending more time with your family. There could be a variety of different things that this means. And so I don't want to be too prescriptive here. I'll leave that up to you and to interpret how all of this integrates with you personally. And so I'm not going to spend much time on this slide, as Jackie did a very nice job of introducing me. So we'll skip by this slide quickly. And as Jackie mentioned, I'm also, in addition to teaching in my day job, I'm also a certified hypnotherapist and an energy healer, and I have a healing practice in Stillwater, although we're not seeing anyone in the office now, as you can imagine. And I provide services like past life regression, life between lives regression, current life regression from a hypnotherapy perspective, and from an energy healing perspective, Reiki and rose healing and some other modalities. And I'm glad, I'm really honored that St. Thomas wanted me to talk about this topic today, because it's very personal to me. In 20, well, I won't give you the exact year away, but my wife and I were starting to think about having children. And one of the pieces of advice that I got was to, before having kids, to go to therapy and to work out any unresolved trauma, I should say, from my childhood, because that can really help to not propagate that onto my own children. And so I met with a therapist for a few sessions, and on the first session, he asked me what I did for a living. And I shared with him that I worked full time. I believe at the time I was at Deluxe, and I'm working full time. I was teaching at University of St. Thomas and a few other schools, and I had just published a book, and I started going on a book tour, and I had a freelance business where I had 8 to 10 clients at a time, and a variety of other things. And my therapist was shocked. He says, "Well, what are you doing all that for? That's way too much. You're doing way too much." And I said, "No, it's fine." He said, well, why do you do all that? Why are you so busy with all that work stuff?" And I thought about it, and I didn't have a great answer. And I said, and maybe after a few moments of contemplation, I said, honestly, I think I'm afraid. And he said, "What are you afraid of?" And I said, "Well, I'm afraid of becoming obsolete if I don't keep all of this up." And he said, well, that's not a good reason to do what you're doing." And I laughed and said, "Yeah, that's probably true. And doing things out of fear is never a great idea." And he then asked me a question, which I'll get to a little bit later, which really haunted me. He said, "Well, who are you? What are you about?" And I said, "Well, as I said, I'm a digital marketer, and I do this and I do that." And he said, No. I'm not asking you what you do. Who are you? What is your essence? Tell me who you are." And I had no answer to the question, and it really bothered me that I didn't. And so I ended up stopping everything I was doing outside of my daytime job, because I knew that was something that I needed to figure out. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as need be during the presentation. But that's when I discovered energy healing. I discovered a variety of other different interests that I had and who I was and what I was passionate about. And so I want to share with you today, because I was getting ahead, but I was definitely losing my head. And I want to share with you some things today about what happens when we do that to ourselves, when we're dealing with stress, when we overdo things, and then how some tactics to sort of help mitigate and remediate some of what's going on. And so with that being said, long introduction into the course material. We know that there is a lot of stuff happening right now. I mean, I shared some of my personal experiences in terms of work stress and all that other stuff that I was going through. But if we think about what's happening nowadays, the stress that and the challenges that we were facing before 2020 seem to be almost minute compared to what we're going through now, right? I mean, there's a lack of social interaction. We can't go out, or if we do go out, they're weird vibes, right? Someone gets too close, it just feels weird, or you get people looking at you kind of, funny. Exhaustion from balancing work, family, and other obligations. So many of you have children at home now that are learning at home, and you're trying to work, and maybe you have a couple of other people in your home working at the same time, and you never get any alone time. And so all of that can be exhausting. Emotional impacts of layoffs and furloughs, right? I mean, we see our friends and our family, for that matter, being laid off. We see small businesses being impacted by the current environment, and that takes its toll on us. We're worried about keeping our jobs, right? I mean, we see what's happening to our friends and family. It's like, well, we may have a thought of when is it going to be my turn, right? Some of us may have that concern. And then, of course, you can't miss any of the fear that gets propagated everywhere you look, whether it be your friends on social media, or it be the news, wherever it is, right? There's all this fear that's going around. And so the emotional state of ourselves and others are a bit out of whack. And so when our energy is off, and we're going to talk a little bit about energy, but everything is off. And if you can just imagine walking into a room or an office or a meeting room, I should say, and there's one person in the room that is upset or angry, whatever it is you can imagine, you pick up on those vibes, right? And so our energy really affects everybody else. And it affects ourselves in more ways than you may be conscious of. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And so when we talk about energy being off, the first thing that I want to share is that we are energetic beings. And I'm just going to show you a quick couple of videos. Not going to run through the first one completely, maybe about a minute of it. But in the first video, what I want to share, you're going to see is it's a study that was conducted in 2016 by Northwestern University, and it's a stunning explosion of zinc fireworks that occurs when a human egg is activated by a sperm enzyme. And the size of these sparks is a direct measure of the quality of the egg and its ability to develop into an embryo. So I'm just going to share this with you really quickly, but it's really cool. So I hope you enjoy. All right, so that's video number one. So the moment that the sperm enters the egg, there's fireworks, there's electricity, there's energy. Moving on, just another quick video of it was a UCLA research study where a mouse's whiskers were stimulated, and this shows what happens and what fires and what triggers in the brain of the mouse. So I just wanted to cover off on the points that from the very beginning of our lives into some of the basic functions, electricity, energy is all part of who we are. And if we think about it, we are all made of energy. So the human body is made up of 7 octillion atoms. And an atom is 99.9999999. I love this number because I can never actually say it. But percent energy, and the rest is physical substance. So if you really think about that and you really want your mind to be blown, know that 99.99999% of our physical substance is actually empty space. Although it's not really empty, as you can see. We get in some really cool quantum discussions at that point. But we are energetic beings. And all of the structures of the human body is formed of atoms. You think of your skin, all of your organs, the bones. And it was funny. Well, let me just state this too. All of the water in our bodies, and And I want to talk about water here for a minute, and I promise we're going to get this is all going to tie back into how to get ahead. But even water in our body is formed by atoms, and we don't think about that, right? Because we just see what's in front of us. We see our skin, we see water, we see bones, we see all this stuff, and we just take it for the form that it is without thinking about what it is at its core, which is energy. And so that energy, those atoms come together and create water, and water is a really important part of our functioning as human beings. So up to 60% of the human adult body is water. And the human brain and heart are composed of 73% water. The lungs are 83%. The skin contains 64% water. Muscles and kidneys, 79%. And even bones are 31% water. And if you think about some of the benefits, or I shouldn't even say benefits, but just some of what water helps us do as humans, it's plentiful. Anything from lubricating our joints to flushing body waste to converting food into components needed for survival, and even helping deliver oxygen all over the body. So lots of different things, helping the brain function properly. So water is really, really important. And I share this because water also gives us having healthy water and healthy energy in our systems is vital to getting ahead without losing our head. And I want to share one of the reasons why, and I think you're going to be blown away with this. So Dr. Masaru Emoto, he wrote a brilliant book called The Hidden Messages in Water. I highly recommend reading it. For the last 20 years of his life, Dr. Emoto studied scientific evidence of how the molecular structure in water transforms when it's exposed to human words, thoughts, sounds, and intentions. And one of the really interesting and probably more controversial theories of Dr. Emoto was that water is a living consciousness. And so, one of the questions I always like to ask people when they say, really, water is a living consciousness, is, well, if all form is made of atoms, why would humans, animals, and organisms have consciousness but not water? And we don't even know what consciousness is, so why even argue about it? But Dr. Emoto put together some pretty incredible evidence that this is the case. So in Dr. Emoto's studies, he discovered that when he took, he discovered that crystals formed in frozen water revealed changes when specific concentrated thoughts are directed towards them. So not even words, thoughts. Imagine that, that water starts to change its form just by somebody projecting thoughts towards it. And he found that water from clear springs and water that had been exposed to loving words showed brilliant, complex, and colorful snowflake patterns. So if you look at the image on the right-hand side of the screen, those lower three images where thank you, love and gratitude, and harmony were projected at the water, you can see these beautiful symmetrical crystals that have been formed. And I'm going to show you a video here in a minute of how this actually worked. So it's not just static images and anyone could have created those, right? And then in contrast to that, when Dr. Emoto pulled water that was polluted or exposed to negative thought forms or thoughts, it formed incomplete asymmetrical patterns with dull colors. And he studied this for 20 years. This was not a study done in a silo, and scientists are still continuing to study this now that he's passed away, and it's become an incredibly popular area of study. So I definitely encourage you to look more into Dr. Emoto, and you can see below at whatthebleep.com, which is a great movie if you haven't seen What the Bleep. What the Bleep Do You Know? It's a great movie, so highly recommend watching it. So I want to share one more video with you guys, and this is an actual video of Dr. Emoto with an experiment where he and a group of people are expressing gratitude towards water, and I want you to see what happens in this video.
In this experiment, Dr. Emoto's researchers used a glass of Tokyo tap water, which seems to be unable to form crystals, and performed a test. Participants placed the glass in the center of their circle and sent gratitude to the water. Studying the water under the microscope, they started to see a crystal formation. increased magnification showed the symmetry of the crystal, revealing how the tap water was transformed by the gratitude sent by the group. The crystal continued to grow, expressing the energies received. The tap water from Tokyo finally produced a beautiful crystal.
It was interesting to see children so completely astonished after they witnessed the difference in Tokyo tap water, before and after they said the prayer. Their mothers were kind of skeptical before this experiment. But afterwards, they said, "We really have to believe it."
So really interesting content there. And so what I want to share is that, we're living through these trying times, as we talked about earlier, and our energy and our water becomes asymmetrical because of the various things that we're going through. And it's not just our current situation, right? But it's really before then. It's any time that we're feeling stressed or having issues, our energy is off, our water becomes asymmetrical, and all of that can affect us emotionally and physically. And, when we don't deal with those things. And so if you think about stress, right, when we're stressed out and it's not dealt with over a long period of time, that stress manifests into a variety of different things, anything from headaches to depression to pounding heart, risk of heart attack, rapid breathing, fertility problems, right? Just a variety. We know this is the case, right? I'm not telling you anything new here. Stress turns into that. And so when we have these types of things that get built up, and we don't learn how to manage our energy and manage our state of mind, we show up to work, we show up to our families and ourselves like this, right? And we're trying so desperately to get ahead. I can tell you, when I started seeing my therapist, this image of Jim Carrey was me. This is how I felt all the time. And while I was succeeding at getting ahead, I felt terrible. I was always tired. I probably wasn't the most pleasant person to be at home around. And was it really worth what I thought at the time getting ahead was? Is it worth not being happy and not really enjoying life? And so if any of this resonates with you, I want to talk with you some ideas to help. So first of all, one of the things that I learned as I went through my journey to get to a better place was that our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. If our water is polluted or it's asymmetrical, as Dr. Emoto would state, we have the ability to clean it. We have the ability to change it. If our energy is off, we can balance it. And it all starts from within. And, I can tell you, I saw my therapist a couple of times, and then I decided to take a break for a little bit because I wasn't a patient person at the time, and some of the things that I was diagnosed, he diagnosed me, and I'll just share this with you because I'm an open book, but I was diagnosed with PTSD related to loss. I had some severe loss in my life and chronic sadness. And, I'd looked for so much help on the outside for years with it, and nothing seemed to help. Medication kind of covered the symptoms of it to some extent, but it was still there. And so when I say it all starts from within, after taking a break, as I mentioned earlier, from doing all the things I was doing, I started to meditate. And I learned to love meditating. And I'll share with you a bit later some of the techniques that I used. But as I learned how to meditate, I became interested in sort of this type of practice, and I started learning a little bit more about energy and how our bodies are energetic, are made of energy, and how everything is energy. And so I started working with my own energy and my own body. And what I found through learning how to heal through energy is and this may sound ridiculous to you guys, but I promise you it's the truth, but I healed myself of the PTSD related to the loss and the chronic sadness in months. It was gone. And it hasn't come back. It doesn't mean that I don't get sad still when there's loss or I'm not emotional, but I've definitely cleared that part of my life. And I'm going to share some things with you about how to do that. And because the reality of it is, I have this image on the screen of someone wearing dirty glasses, but we have these filters that form from experiences in life. And especially as we're younger, we have these, whether it's trauma or whatever it is that we experience, and we end up viewing the world through these filters or dirty glasses, and it can affect the way we see everything, right? And so oftentimes our inner world is absolutely a reflection of our outer world. So if we can clean that inner world up, it helps us see the world in a little bit of a better way. And so the first thing I recommend is healing the places where negative self-talk comes from. And negative self-talk is one of the most dangerous things that we can do to ourselves. Believe it or not, when we're in the process of negative self-talk, we're actually in a hypnotic state. And if anyone studied hypnosis here, when you're in hypnosis, in a state of hypnosis, your subconscious mind becomes highly accessible. And as we're negative self-talking, that negative self-talk actually gets reprogrammed into our minds over and over and over again, that subconscious mind. And that's why oftentimes we can't seem to get out of it. And so, that self-talk, whether it be positive or negative, comes from beliefs that we have about ourselves. And, we've got to become, in order to remove that self-talk, we have to become consciously aware when we are partaking in negative self-talk, and then try to figure out what beliefs do we have about ourselves that are causing it. And because there are some deeply rooted beliefs there. And once we identify those beliefs, it's upon us then to take the journey to identify what experiences created those beliefs. So what things did we go through in our life that created those events? And then we must heal the remnant of those experiences. And so I'll share with you, I had a client who visited with me, and she was really struggling with the fear from COVID and about dying. And that's what she came to me for, related to COVID. And I said, well, did you have this fear of death before COVID? And she goes, well, yeah, I did. And we started talking through her life. And it turns out that as a young child, she was brought to a pretty traumatic funeral of a grandparent that she was very close to. And she saw the grandparent in the casket, and it just freaked her out. And so that was a really traumatic experience. And so you have to imagine that when that happened to her, she's carrying around this trauma from this experience as a child. And so now when COVID comes around, the impact of the trauma that she's seeing on the news from COVID is actually magnifying what happened to her when she was a child. So she's seeing already the world through these eyes of the trauma that she experienced. Now COVID is just making it worse. And so that's just one example of how some of these experiences that we go through can affect us. It could be the same thing if we experience rejection as a child, and we're constantly feeling that we're not good enough, and then we get laid off from our job. Holy moly, imagine what happens there, right? So we've got to heal those things that are going on inside of us. And so outside of working with a professional, there are other things that you can do. So one of my favorite meditations is called a metta meditation. It's a loving kindness meditation. And I provided a link here. It's on Insight Timer. It's free. It doesn't cost a penny. And so loving kindness meditation increases happiness. And I meditate with this at least 2 or 3 times a week. It's gonna make you happy. It's gonna make you feel more connected to people you love, acquaintances, and honestly, even strangers. And so the gist of it is, at least with this in particular meditation, it's got beautiful music. It takes you to a really relaxed, beautiful place, and you close your eyes and you essentially send well wishes to yourself. You start it with well wishes. So you say, "May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. And may I live life with ease." And you repeat that over and over and over again. And you start to feel something begin to change in your heart. And then after a few minutes of doing that for yourself, you're guided to then think of somebody who you love. And you repeat the same mantras. May I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, and may I live life with ease. Actually, you're saying, may that person, right? Not you anymore, but you're thinking of that person you love. And then you repeat the same thing for somebody that maybe you don't know well. Maybe it's a barista at Starbucks or someone else that you've just crossed paths, but you're wishing them those same well wishes. And then you visualize maybe somebody who you don't like, somebody that you have conflict with, and you send those same well wishes to them. And then you finish off by sending well wishes to all living beings. And by doing this, you're sort of practicing emitting love. And when we think about Dr. Emoto's study of water and consciousness and what happens with when the children shared gratitude and what happened to the water, when you're doing that, not only does it change you inside, but it changes everybody that you're around. It works, and it's powerful. There's another meditation, a little self-promotion here, but this is free. I've got 6 meditations up on Insight Timer. It's free. This is a link to one of them. And it's really important, I found, at least for me, with as busy as we get every day, I'm still really busy. And I need time to just slow down and take some time for myself to meditate at the end of the day. I meditate in the morning before I go to work, and I meditate in the evening before I go to bed. And it just helps me. We tend to just live in our thoughts all day long. And if we can pull ourselves out of our thoughts, and even in a meditation where you still have thoughts, because that's just how our brains are wired to think, and we can never really completely get rid of thoughts, and nor should we. But what happens in meditation is you become able to recognize or observe the thoughts more so than live in them. So instead of being in the movie, you're watching the movie. And once you're able to separate yourself from your thoughts, in the sense that you're able to just observe them and notice what comes up and just let them pass, almost like leaves in a stream of water, just watching them go. You begin to remove yourself emotionally from those thoughts, and you begin to recognize that you're not your thoughts. You're the one who is observing those thoughts. And this is a very, very powerful process, because if you think about all of the stress and all the other things that you're feeling inside, your thoughts and feelings due to everything going on, once you're able to separate yourself from those thoughts and feelings, you begin to find peace. And that's very important. And then, of course, imagine what that does to your body and your mind and your overall mental and physical health. And it opens you up for lots of really positive things to happen in your life. Binaural beats meditations. These are awesome. I love binaural beats meditation. So I provided a link on the lower right-hand side to a website. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. It's where I get my meditation, my binaural beat meditations from. And so binaural beats are great, especially if you're not a great meditator or you just started meditating. And I hate saying that you're not a great meditator, because everyone can meditate. It just takes practice. But binaural beats is kind of like a fast track to getting into that deeply relaxed state. And so what happens is the music, and it is music, they're beautiful sounds. Some have nature sounds, some are music, but there are these tones. You hear 2 different tones. One ear hears one tone and the other ear hears another, and they're both at different frequencies. And your brain processes that beat at the difference of the frequencies, hence the name binaural beats. And so those beats actually get you into a meditative state much quicker than simply going into meditation. So I like to do both. I like to meditate to binaural beats, or with binaural beats, I should say, because I get really deep into meditation. And so, things like reduced anxiety, increased focus and concentration, lower stress, your relaxation is going to improve. You're going to foster positive moods, promote creativity, and it's going to help manage pain. It can even help manage pain. There are a lot of benefits to using binaural beats meditation. Now, definitely read the sites. I don't have, or the website here. I wish I had more time to get into it, but there's some rules to the road on how you use them. So definitely make sure you understand that before getting into binaural beats. But binaural beats is how I learned how to meditate. When I said I started off meditating for 30 minutes, I was listening to a very powerful binaural beat meditation that took me right into this zone. And before I knew it, my time was up, and I was like, how is that 30 minutes? And so it's a really incredible practice. The power of prayer. So for those of you who pray, it's not just the words that you say. It's not just the words that we say, because I pray every morning and every evening. As a Reiki practitioner, which is a form of energy healing, we say a Reiki prayer, which is and it may not sound like other prayers from different faiths or religion, but it's you close your eyes and you say, just for today, I will let go of anger. Just for today, I will let go of worry. Just for today, I will be filled with gratitude. Just for today, I will commit myself to my work. And just for today, I will be kind to every living being. Now, when you've been saying that same prayer every day, 2 times a day for years, eventually it can become so repetitive that, at least for me, I find myself just going through the motions and saying the words. And so what I've had to learn how to do is just stop and think about the words that I'm saying. So when I close my eyes and say, just for today, I will let go of anger, I'll just sit with that anger and just notice if there is any anger, and I'll just sit with it until it leaves. And the same thing for worry. And when I say I will be filled with gratitude, I wait until I start to feel my heart fill with gratitude. And this goes back to the Dr. Emoto study with consciousness, right? And really the power behind what we're projecting. And so this is really where the power of prayer becomes incredibly powerful. And so at least just that's my 2 cents on it. Limit your exposure to negative energy. So this is a really big one here. We know that whether we're on social media, right? Because social media is just so positive these days. Actually, when was it positive last? It's really tough, right? The news, you look on the news and there's just negative story after negative story. And again, back to Dr. Emoto's study, that consciousness, that anger, that those negative things make our water, our energy asymmetrical, which cause us challenges. You talking to people, right? Some of us have family members, and you get on the phone, and all it is complain, or just casting their own negativity upon us, and you can feel it, right? Like you can feel it when you're talking to somebody, and they're so negative, you just feel it inside, and it's like, oh my gosh, I just need to get off the phone. I need to protect my energy. Now, I'm not saying that you never expose yourself to negative energy, because that would be impossible. So definitely make sure that you're limiting it, though. And this is all part of energy management, and making sure that we're all in a let me not say Zen, but as close to Zen place as we can be with all of this stuff going on around us. Keeping an attitude of gratitude. So I know that's a pretty popular euphemism or saying, keeping an attitude of gratitude. But one of the things that I have my clients do, and it really works for them, is in the morning I have them write down 3 things that they're grateful for. Whether it be on a piece of paper or they're keeping a journal, just write down 3 things that you're grateful for. And as you're writing them down, I want you to feel that gratitude for those things, right? Really feel it. Let it not just be something you're writing. Just sit with what you're writing until you feel it. And then in the evening, as your day wraps up, in that same place, write down another 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for that happened that day. And it's really fascinating, because I don't know if you've, I'm sure all of you have bought a car. So, but when you're thinking about buying a car, and you're maybe it's a new model that you hadn't considered buying before, and you're all of a sudden, because now you've been looking to purchase that car, you start to see that car everywhere on the road, and you never noticed it before, but it's there. They're all there, and it's like, whoa, look, hey, look, there's a red one, there's a green one, there's a blue one, right? You start to see all these different vehicles of the type that you're looking to buy. Well, the same thing happens with gratitude, right? The more that, because if we know that at the end of the day that we're going to have to write 3 to 5 things that we're grateful for, and this becomes a practice that we do every day, we start looking for the gratitude, right? We start looking to find that gratitude. And so, and as we start to notice it more, then we just naturally become more grateful for the things that we have in our life. And we stop focusing on the lack or the things that we don't have, and we become much more focused on the gratitude. And you saw, again, back to Dr. Emoto's study, when gratitude is projected, what happens? Gratitude is one of the most powerful energies that you can harness, and it brings great benefits in that regard. So keep that attitude of gratitude. Be present. This one is so important. And this is something, honestly, that I still struggle with, because we're so busy all day long and we're constantly multitasking. I can tell you when I'm at work, and I'm sure some of you experience this, I'll be on a meeting and then I see some instant messages coming in and I see my email light up, and all of these different things are going on. I'm needed for a variety of different things, and my brain's constantly going left to right to left to right. And then on break times or wherever, it's like grab the phone and start checking what's going on social media, and do I have anything going on with my personal email or whatever it is, right? Whatever we're working on. We have all these things going on and we're constantly going back and forth. And then you hear, well, be present. How to be present. And so that can be definitely a challenge. But if you're focused on being present, if it becomes, and some of this you'll learn through meditation, because meditation teaches us how to be present. And, as I mentioned earlier, where you start to observe your thoughts versus being sort of trapped in your thoughts. When you're trapped in your thoughts, you're not present because you're just in them, right? And you're just going through all of these different things that aren't even real. They're just thoughts. But when you start to observe them and you recognize that you're the observer and you're not the thought, you can become more present, and you learn to become more present. And so in your day, as you're going through whatever it is, you're getting ready to go into a meeting and it's really stressful, right? You're feeling that stress. You take a step back and you notice the stress, but you don't necessarily engage with it. You see that it's there and you realize, okay, that's something that I'm feeling, but I'm not the stress. I'm not that feeling. I'm the one that's experiencing that feeling. And so as you begin to practice this more throughout your day, you'll find that when you're with your family, you're able to just be there. You'll notice thoughts or distractions come up, but you're going to be able to really focus with your family. And I love Dr. Joe Dispenza, or I'm sorry, Eckhart Tolle's quote here, where it says, when you make the present moment instead of the past and the future, because really there is no such thing as the past, right? And there is no such thing as the future. The only thing that is right now. The past is gone. The future hasn't happened yet. So all we are is right here, right? And when we make that present the focal point of our lives, our ability to enjoy what we do, and with it, the quality of our lives increases dramatically. So as you're present with your family, you're going to enjoy that time so much more, right? When we're working, work, oh God, I just don't want to go to work today. If we're present with our work, and I'm not saying that everybody feels that way, I'm just being silly here, but with our work, when we're present with it, we can really enjoy it, right? How many of you, when you're like deep in a project and you're so focused on it, and you're just there, the time goes by quick and you're just proud of the stuff that you're doing. But when you're being bothered by everything else, it can feel like a stress, right? It doesn't feel as good. So be present with your work, and in your quiet time, in your meditation, be present. In your prayer time, be present. And really, once you start to practice being present in a variety of different ways, you become present all the time. You learn to be present all the time. And I've included a link at the bottom here. It's a beautiful meditation. It's one of my favorite meditations by Ram Dass, where he actually walks you through some things. It's a guided meditation, and you actually learn how to improve your ability to be present, and also your awareness of when you're not being present. So very, very powerful. All right. So make space for yourself to explore new interests. So as I shared earlier, in my own experience, when after I left my therapists that day and said, okay, I've got to figure out what my essence is. I have to figure out who I am. And I'm never going to figure that out by being as busy as I am. And I dropped everything except for my day job. And I learned how to meditate. And then I learned about energy healing. And I changed. I became a new person. As I said, I healed from my PTSD related to loss. I healed from my chronic sadness. And I started learning about all this new energy healing. I started learning about hypnotherapy. I started learning about a variety of different things. I learned to appreciate nature. I learned to go out and stand in the backyard in my bare feet and just close my eyes and feel the energy of the earth come through me. And I people call me a hippie now, and that's cool. I'm all right being a hippie. I don't mind that label. And so, but I never would have found that if I hadn't made space to explore those new interests. And so I know a lot of us are busy and it's hard to find time, but if you can, find the time to make space for yourself. I had a dear friend who works with people, helping them find who they are, what their essence is, and I found my essence. But it's difficult, right? Who am I? Everyone asks that question. What am I passionate about? What do I really love? And I had a dear friend who said, Adam, and this was in the beginning of my journey, she said, what was it that you loved to do when you were a child? Because I said to her, I don't know where to start. Like, how do I even begin to find what my essence is and what my passion is? She says, what did you love to do when you were a child? And I said, magic. I was a magician. I was an amateur magician. I did close-up magic. I made Oreo cookies disappear right in front of your eyes. And I did kids' birthday parties. And I even performed at the Chinese circus when I was in high school. And so I was really good at it. And I just fell in love with the ability, with sort of that mystical side of life, even though they were all tricks. And so, but I kept telling my friend, who was, find what you're passionate about. And I'm like, well, I can't be a magician. I'm too old for that. Like, I don't, and magic's not a passion of mine anymore. But lo and behold, a couple of, year or so later, after talking to her, I find myself doing this energy healing thing and this hypnotherapy thing where I'm taking people into their past lives, or taking people into their current lives, into their past memories, where they're able to address the trauma that happened to them and heal from it. And if that's not magic, I don't know what is, right? Sure, it may be science or spirituality, but it's magic to me. And it was interesting to see that thread that connected the passions that I had as a child and what really fascinated me into what I was doing now in my current life. So try to make that space, because if I hadn't made that space, and it was really, really hard, it wasn't easy to give all of that up. But sometimes you have to be a little bit selfish to take care of yourself, and that's okay. And so I also, sing in the shower, right? Have some fun. We're all so serious nowadays. You have to be serious. You can't have any fun. So dance, laugh, have a little fun. I recently read a study that said 20 minutes of dancing gives the same benefit as an hour of meditation. And so it doesn't really matter if you can or can't dance. I can tell you I can't dance, but sometimes when I'm alone, I'll turn the music up and I'll just have at it and let loose and have a little fun. It's okay to lighten up. Not everything has to be so serious all the time. And so after we begin some of these practices, and there's a lot more, I'm just covering some of them, right? There's yoga, there's all kinds of things that we can do. But eventually after practice, we begin to learn how to manage our energy on a regular basis. And this doesn't mean that we don't have off days, right? We're all going to have our off days, but we'll recognize that when we're having our off days, that we're not tied to those off days, meaning we're not stuck there. We can pull ourselves out of it, and we can work and help balance our energy. And, even when the world around you isn't at peace, you'll find yourself being at peace. And the energy, your energy, will attract the things that you wish into your life, whatever those things are. When you walk into a meeting and you're in a good space and your energy is solid, you're going to uplift everybody else in that room, and people are going to notice that there's something different about you. When you're going for a job interview and you're just in a good place, right? You're gonna emit that, and the person who's interviewing you and that you're talking to, they're going to feel that as well. I promise you, they're going to feel that. When you're with your family and you're at peace, your family is going to pick up on that. It's interesting. Even when I talk to my mother who lives in New York, I talk to her all the time. Like, I can tell when I first start talking to her, it's just, oh my gosh, you're not going outside, are you? You two, you and your wife, you're not going out to eat, are you? You're not going here, you're not going there. You're just staying in the house, right? Like, you're not going anywhere. And by the end of the conversation, we're having this happy, loving conversation. And it's energy. And just like when I mentioned earlier, when you walk into a meeting room and someone is aggravated or frustrated, you pick up on that. Other people will pick up on your energy, and that's going to help you get ahead and will attract the things you want into your life, whatever those things may be. And so that, my friends, are how we get ahead without losing our head. And I just want to finish with one of my favorite quotes to close this out with Dr. Emoto, which is, "You must be shapeless, formless, like water. When you pour water in a cup, it becomes the cup. When you pour water in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. When you pour water in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Water can drip and it can crash. Become like water, my friend, the great Bruce Lee. And with that, thank you for your time.
Wow, Adam, thank you for all that positive energy. And we're a little short on time, but I've gotten quite a few things coming through the chat. A lot of appreciation for you, a lot of gratitude going towards you. I love the Just for Today prayer. A lot of mention of John Kabat-Zinn. But let me ask you one or two questions before we wrap up. The first one is, when you are limiting negative exposure, how can you redirect someone who is really negative?
Ooh, that's a really good question. You know, the one thing that I've learned is you can't change somebody who's not ready to be changed. And that's a really hard lesson for us to learn. I mean, you can think about that to consider somebody who has an addiction, right? You can't, if somebody's not ready to change, then that's their journey. They have to go on that journey themselves. And addiction to negative, being negative is an addiction in some regards, right? Because we get hooked on it. It becomes like a drug. It releases certain chemicals in our brain that we get hooked on. And so the one recommendation I can give, and this is not mine, I'm stealing it for Ram Dass, but Ram Dass says, the only thing that I can do to help, because Ram Dass worked with people who are dying of AIDS and terrible, terrible illnesses. And he realized there was nothing he could do to make them feel any better about what they were going through. And so what Ram Dass said was, the only thing I can do is work on myself. The only thing that I can do is work on myself. And then when I find that I've worked on myself, I then give space for other people to come up for air. And so that would be my recommendation. Don't try and change anybody else. Just work on yourself. And if you're already there, great. But I would also say that if somebody is being negative and it's affecting you, it's okay to say, hey, listen, I just want you to know that I love you. You're a dear friend or a family member, and I care about you. But you know, this conversation or these conversations we have isn't really sitting well with me. And so, you know, if we can't do something about that, I'm going to have to limit the exposure that we have. And sometimes that can be enough to get people to realize that, wow, maybe I am being really negative. Or they may go, well, I'm done with you, right? And that's okay too, because the most important thing is for you to protect your battery.
Yep. Well, thank you, Adam. And I do fear we're short on time today. Great questions coming through. As I mentioned, well, first of all, I want to thank you, Adam, for joining us today. And if, you know, we'll be sending out the link to the presentation here in the next few days. If you are looking for additional professional development, as I mentioned, outside of, you know, this great talk that Adam did, he is also in our digital marketing certificate. He's a fabulous teacher. Consider looking at that. Or if you're looking for any professional development, right now we're running a discount 15% off if you register before the end of September. And we have our website with all of our new fall courses listed. So I hope you enjoyed today, and I also hope we see you next month on Wednesday, October 14th, when we're joined by Peter Krems with the session, How Working Virtually Changes the Work of Leadership. Thank you for joining us today. Be safe, be well, and I hope I see you next month.